Good morning. Today we will start a new lesson from the same textbook, Flamingo. The lesson is from the prose section and the title of the lesson is The Rattrap. And it is written by Selma Lagerlof. So like usual, before we move on to the main lesson, first let us do the pre-reading. Okay? So the pre-reading that we are going to do is again the same technique of comprehension that we have used in the last lesson, poetry lesson, and elementary school classroom in a slum. We use the same technique there. So if you wish to know what that technique is, I have explained that technique in detail in that lesson. So you can refer to that lesson, an elementary school classroom in a school, part 1. So we'll use the same comprehension technique today as well. And the technique is called SQR. Okay? S for survey or scheme, and Q for question, and R stands for read. So we'll use the same technique. And as I have mentioned before, pre-reading is very important for you to give a direction into what you are reading. It will lead you to your destination, which is comprehension, understanding what you read. So pre-reading is very important. So we'll use the same technique today as well. So this is the textbook, picture of the textbook. So in the textbook, this is what you are going to see. So if we survey the textbook, what we see here is a picture or a photograph, picture of a rat trap or a trap there, and then the title. Okay, and then we also have a bit about the writer. Okay, and then we also have some of the expressions or unfamiliar words which you can use as you read along for a better understanding. Okay, so by looking at all these things, observing all these things, surveying all these things, now the next step is Q, the question section. So we'll start asking questions to ourselves, frame questions, which will lead us to the actual destination of our task, that is the reading comprehension. For example, we'll say, what is a rat trap? Okay, you have a picture there. So we all know that rat trap is a device which is used for catching rats. Okay. Next question that you can ask is, how does a rat trap function? Okay, so how does a rat trap work? The main thing that we need to know is that rat trap is a device which is used for catching rats. But how do we catch rats? We are all familiar with its mechanism. We put a small piece of food like a meat or a cheese or a bread inside, and there is a mechanism by which the door closes itself if the rats pulls that piece of food. So that is how the rat trap functions, and that piece of food is called a bait. The fishermen also use baits to catch fish. You might have seen that the fishermen put a small piece of meat or small worms on the tip of the hook, which attracts the fish, and they get caught. So same mechanism is used here even in a rat trap. That is how the rat trap functions. Okay. Another question that comes into our mind is, what is its relevance in the story? Okay, so this is again important. We can ask ourselves, why does the writer give this story this title, The Rat Trap? What is its significance or relevance in the story? Okay, so that question also comes into our mind, and all these questions will lead us to our understanding, because we will be looking for answers to all these questions. So that is called the SQR technique. Okay, you can think of many more questions. Okay, so the next that we are going to look at is the writer herself. Okay, if we look into the writer's lives again, this will give us a direction into the better understanding of their work, especially the work that we are going to read. Okay, so this is what is written in our textbook about the author. Okay, Selma Lagerlöf was a Swedish writer whose stories have been translated into many languages. Okay, so she is a Swedish writer, and her works have been translated into many languages. Why? Because they usually have a universal theme. Okay, so all of her works have a universal theme. And what is that universal theme? A belief that the essential goodness in a human being can be awakened through understanding and love. Okay, so here, universal theme, I have given it separately for you to read and grasp and keep in your mind. So all her works contain this theme, that the essential goodness in a human being can be awakened through love and understanding. So what we understand from here is that all the human beings are not totally white or not totally black. I'm not talking about the complexion or the skin. I'm talking about our characteristics, our qualities as a human being. What I'm saying is no human being is totally cruel, bad, or totally kind or good. We all always have that shade of gray. Okay, so even if somebody is bad or cruel, he has some goodness within him, and that goodness can be awakened or brought out by using love and understanding. So love and understanding is the key that breaks the bond and bring out the goodness in a human being. So we usually say love and understanding is something that is used as a language. If it is used as a language, it is understood by everyone. Even the animals understand this. So this is what she is saying, that all the goodness, essential goodness that we have hidden within ourselves can be awakened through love and understanding. Okay, and another thing that we need to know is it brings into focus the idea that the whole world is a rat trap. Riches, joys, shelter, and food are all lucrative baits to trap mankind. So this is again important. Okay, the story focuses on the idea that the whole world is a rat trap. So rat trap here is used as a metaphor. Okay, it has a metaphorical meaning. So what the writer is saying is all the riches, food and shelter are like the bait that traps us and causes lots of sufferings in our lives. So the whole world is like that rat trap. And in that rat trap, we get caught and suffer. Okay, setting of the story is also given in that part. Here, the setting is also important. The setting of the story is, it is set amidst the iron mines of Sweden, which are popular and have been mentioned in the history and legend of the country. So the story is set in iron mines of Sweden. So from that, we again get the idea that there is something to do with iron ores, and maybe iron factories. I don't know whether we can say factories, iron ores, we usually say iron works, something like that. The story takes place there. So these all are important, and we get the idea from the part that is mentioned in the textbook about the writer. And all this will lead us to the better understanding of the story. Okay, so next we'll move on to the main story. Okay, so if we move to the main story, it is important for us to know the main characters. So the protagonist, we can say, or the main character, the central character of the story is a battler, who is a poor man who sold rat traps for living and was a petty thief as well. Okay, battler. Battler means a person who moves from one place to the other selling things, and a person who is on constant move. Okay, then the next main character is the crafter. A crafter is a simple, trusting person who is robbed by the battler. And the next important person or the main character is the iron master. Okay, he is a stern taskmaster and a law-abiding person. He trusts the battler due to his daughter's persuasion. And the last is Atla. Okay, Atla is the ironmaster's daughter, who is a kind and compassionate person or lady. So here again we need to pay attention to this phrase, kind and compassionate. Love and understanding we talked about in the pre-reading. So she is the central character as well. So we are going to read about all these people in the story. Okay, the rat trap battler and his thoughts about the world. So this is the first main topic that we need to understand. Okay, since he is the central character, we will be talking about him and his characteristics. So he has formed a certain thought about the world. And what is that thought? So we'll discuss that part. Okay, so this is the rat trap battler. Okay, so the story begins like a fairy tale. So if you look at the textbook, the story begins like a fairy tale. It is written like a fairy tale by saying once upon a time. Okay. The central character is a vagabond. Vagabond and battler are synonyms. Okay, vagabond means a person who travels from one place to another, who went around selling small rat traps to make his living. So that is what he does. He goes around from town to town, from door to door, selling his small rat traps that he made himself from the materials he got from bagging. So he did not have money to buy the materials. So what he does is bags these materials, especially the iron wires from people, and makes the small rat traps and carries them along with him and goes from place to place, sell all these rat traps. So he's a poor person. Okay, so his business was not profitable. Not profitable means he did not earn much to survive. It did not give him enough sustenance. He did not get enough money by selling his small rat traps. So what he did is, so he had to beg and even steal. Sometimes he even has to beg for food, and sometimes even he had to resort to stealing to sustain or survive. Okay, so his clothes were in rags and his cheeks were sunken and hunger gleamed in his eyes. His cheeks were sunken and hunger gleamed in his eyes indicates the intensity of his poverty. He is a very poor person. So he is most of the time hungry, and because of that he is very thin, and his eyes were sunken, cheeks were sunken in, and the eyes gleamed in hunger. Okay, so all these indicate that he was a very poor person. He did not have enough to even eat. Okay, so he is a very poor person. That is important for us to understand. So while he was engrossed in thoughts about rat traps one day, a very amusing thought came to his mind, that the whole world was a rat trap. Again, this part is important. So one day while going to sell his rat traps. He was very tired and he sat down and put his rat traps near his feet and looked at them. As he was looking at his rat traps, he became very philosophical. A very amusing thought came into his mind. And what was that thought? That thought was that the whole world that we live in is a big rat trap. So that is a metaphor, use of a metaphor. He compares the world that we live in to a rat trap. He's saying that both the world that we live in and the rat trap are same. In what sense? Okay, it offered comforts and joys just like the rat trap offered cheese and meat. Okay, so in this sense, the world offered comforts, joys, and happiness to trap us within itself. Like cheese and meat are offered in a rat trap, and the rat is attracted towards the trap. And once he gets close to the piece of meat or the bait, the rat trap closes and he gets trapped, caught inside. So in the same way, joy, happiness, food, love, all these are like the bait, the piece of cheese that attracts the rat. That cheese also attracts human beings, money. All these attract human beings towards suffering, the world that we live in, and we get trapped in them, and we can not get out of it. So this amusing thought came into his mind, and it also provided him a kind of comfort to think that it is not only the rat trap that traps or enslaves the animal. The whole world itself is like the rat trap, where even the rich people get trapped and they are also led to suffer in the world, like that rat who is caught in the rat trap. Okay, so the next topic is the crofter treats the battler nicely, but the battler cheats him. Okay, so after thinking about that thought that the whole world is like a rat trap, and all these luxurious things like money, joy, happiness, wealth, name, and title are like the bait which attracts us towards the world from which we cannot move out, the world of suffering. Then he started moving, and it became night. So now he needed a shelter to spend the night. Okay, so what he did is he saw a small cottage, and he went to that small cottage to ask for shelter for the night, to seek shelter for the night. Okay. The owner, who had once been a crofter, not only invited him in, but was happy to get someone to talk to. So on that particular evening, he was very lucky, because the owner of that cottage was a person who was very hospitable, kind, and generous. And he not only invited him inside to spend the night at his cottage, but he was even happy to find someone to talk to. Again, we have to think about this crofter. Why was he so kind and hospitable? Okay, generous. Why? So here, crofter. What does a crofter mean? A crofter was somebody who rented a small farm with a plot of land and living in a house on it. A tenant farmer who paid his tenancy with manpower instead of cash. So crofter is a person who has a small farm and rents it, and lives on the farm itself. It's like a small farmer. Crofter is a small farmer. Crofter is used especially in Scotland. It's a small farmer who gives his lands for rent. Okay, so now if we look at this crofter, we said he was very kind. He invited the paddler to come inside and was very talkative with him. Why? The old crofter was lonely. He was very friendly with the paddler because he was lonely. He was feeling lonely and he was looking for somebody to talk to. He was looking for a companion to spend some time with. Okay, so why was he lonely? Because he was without a wife or children. He did not have a wife, he did not have children, he was living all alone on the farm. So because of that, he was very lonely and he needed companionship. And he was very happy and glad to find someone coming to his cottage, and he thought that evening he is going to have a good time talking with another human being. Okay, so he welcomed the Rattrap seller inside. Okay, and he was generous and he shared his supper of porridge with the paddler. Okay, he did not only give him the shelter for the night, he even shared his supper of porridge with the paddler. And not only that, he even shared his tobacco. That means they smoked together and they even played a game of jollies. They even played a game. Okay, and they also started talking. They had a conversation, and he told the paddler that he once walked. Here he trusted the guest and treated him well. He shared his supper of porridge, his tobacco, and even invited him to a game of jollies. Okay, so in the conversation, the crofter told the paddler about what he did in his early days. He informed the paddler that during his days of prosperity, he had worked at the Ramshaw's ironworks. So that is ironworks, not iron factory, as I said before, ironworks. So he worked at Ramshaw's ironworks when he was young. Okay. It was a large plant with smelter, rolling mill, and forge. These are the words which have been used in the textbook, and it is important for you to understand these words. Okay, so he said it was a very large iron plant, and it was equipped with all the necessary things like the smelter, the rolling mill, and the forge. So here, smelting or smelter is a machine, and smelting is a process of applying heat to the ore in order to extract a base metal. Okay, so smelter is that machine. It's like a furnace in which heat is applied in order to extract the base metal. And the next word is we have rolling mill. Okay, so rolling mill is again that equipment on which the sheet of metal is given shape. So it's a process in which metal is passed through one or more pairs of rolls to reduce the thickness and to make the thickness uniform. The concept is similar to rolling a dough. We roll doughs to make chapati. In the same way, the ore is rolled to give it the correct thickness. So that is called rolling. And the machine used for that is called rolling mill. And then we have forge. Okay, forge or forging is a manufacturing process involving the shaping of the metal. So after the metal is given that proper thickness, it is given the required shapes. For example, if you want a sword, it is given the shape of that sword. Okay, so that is called forging. Okay, the blows are delivered with hammer. So to give that shape, it is beaten with hammers, and often in an iron work or iron plant, it is a power hammer. That means it is a very big hammer which functions with other mechanism. Okay, so these are all present at Ramshaws iron works. It was a big iron work, and a crafter worked there when he was young. So it is possible that he had earned quite well. But now, how does he lead his life? Now, his cow supported him. Okay, so we said he was a crafter. He has a small farmland. He lives there and gives it for rent. And he also has a cow, and he is supported by that cow. And he trusted the guest so much that he shared everything with him. He even shared the fact that he had earned 30 kronor by selling the cow's milk. Okay, kronor is the currency of Sweden. So the trusting battler crafter told the battler that he even had earned recently 30 kronor by selling the milk from his cow. That means he is leading quite a prosperous life. Okay, and when he told the battler that he had earned 30 kronor by selling the milk, the battler seemed incredulous. Incredulous means doubtful, disbelief. Okay, he showed some disbelief. So to convince the battler that he actually had earned 30 kronor, what did he do? The crafter showed him the money. And while showing him the money, he even revealed the place where he kept his money. So you see, he was very trusting and showed the 30 kronor that he had kept hidden behind his window. Okay, so why did he do this? He did this to convince the battler that he actually had earned 30 kronor by selling the milk from his cow. Okay, so after spending the night with him, talking to him, what they did is the next day both left the cottage at the same time. The battler went on his work of selling the rat traps, and the crafter maybe has some errands to run. So both left the cottage at the same time. But what happened? But half an hour later, the battler returned. Why do you think he came back? Why do you think the battler returned half an hour later? Okay. What was his purpose? He went up to the window, smashed the pane, and took out the 30 kronor from the pouch in which they were kept and ran away. Okay, so the battler returned to steal the money. Okay, so what he did is he knew where the money was kept. It was kept close to the window in a pouch. So he broke the window pane, took out the pouch and the money, and ran away from it. So what we learn here is the battler himself has fallen into the trap that he had thought about. He said the whole world is a rat trap. That is the first trap in which he has fallen. And the bait was the 30 kronor that was shown to him by the crafter. Okay, so that is what he did. The crafter was very kind to him, but the battler fell into the trap of greed and stole the money from the person whom he was very kind and ran away. Okay, so we have covered quite a lot here, and I want you to practice writing. Okay, answer the following bravely. How does the paddler make his living? What was the paddler's amusing idea about the world? How did the crofter treat the paddler? What did the paddler do in return for the crofter's hospitality? Thank you.